Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Johns Hopkins School of Education Counseling Virtual Webinar. My name is Sion John. I'm the Assistant Director of Admissions. Also presenting today, we have two faculty members, Dr. Sean Newart and Dr. Ileana Gonzalez, and two student speakers, Leah Cherner and Dantavious Hicks. Lastly, my colleague from the Office of Admissions will also introduce herself and take it from here.
Good afternoon, everyone. Before we get started, there are just a few housekeeping topics I'd like to cover. First, today's webinar is being recorded. We will be able to share a link with you after the event is complete. Also, please take this time to make sure your mic is on mute and that your video is off. There will also be a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. At that time, we're going to ask that you type in your questions in the chat box, and we will read your answer and answer your questions. Next, I would like to share the agenda for today's virtual webinar. We will kick off the presentation sharing an overview of the Johns Hopkins School of Education. I will provide a brief introduction for our presenters today. I will also share an overview. There will be an overview of future programs, admissions requirements, financial aid and scholarship information, as well as the Q&A session at the end. So to start, just some quick facts about JHU School of Education. We are one of 9 schools at Johns Hopkins University. We began offering college courses for teachers in 1909 and then became our own school in 2007. We are proud to share that the Johns Hopkins School of Education is consistently ranked one of the top schools in education by the U.S. News and World Report. For school enrollment, we have approximately 2,465 enrolled students as of fall 2019, 30 plus programs offered on campus as well as online, 121 full-time faculty as well, 22,000 alumni, and 230 counseling degree enrolled as of 2019. At this time, I would like to present Dr. Sean Newhart. Dr. Newhart is the assistant professor in the counseling department. He has a PhD from the College of William and Mary. He teaches graduate students in the counseling master's degree program with a focus on clinical mental health counseling. He's a national certified counselor, clinical mental health counselor, and a licensed graduate professional counselor in the state of Maryland. His research interests are college counseling, the influence of family systems on mental health, as well as counselor development. Our second faculty presenter for today is Dr. Ileana Gonzalez. She is the assistant professor in the counseling department as well. She has a PhD from University of Maryland. Her research interests include urban school counselors and social justice related issues in counselor education. She's a member of the American Counseling Association, Association of Counselor Education and Supervision, Chi Sigma Iota International Counseling Honor Society, Counselors for Social Justice, and the Association of Multicultural Counseling Development. She's also a former chapter faculty advisor for the Johns Hopkins University Lambda chapter of CSI. She was also named Counselor of the Year by the Maryland Counseling Association for 2020. Without further ado, our presenters for today's counseling presentation.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. This is Dr. Ileana Gonzalez. Thank you so much for that introduction to both Dr. Newhart and I. On behalf of Dr. Newhart and I and the 10 additional faculty members that are part of our department, I want to welcome all of you to this webinar, whether you're watching it now live or will watch the recording. Thank you so much for your interest in our counseling program. We're really excited to share some aspects of our counseling program with you. And of course, as stated earlier, if you have any questions, feel free to type in the chat room. And I'm really lucky to be part of this organization. First things first, of course, I have to address that this is the most uncounselor-like experience in terms of looking at a bunch of names on a screen and not being able to see faces or interact face-to-face. So This is very strange for all of us, I'm sure, as counselors, but we're going to get through this as best we can, and it's the situation that we have, so we will be very flexible. So let me talk a little bit about the mission statement of our Counseling and Human Development program. It's to prepare graduate students to serve as socially just school counselors and clinical mental health counselors who implement theoretical, empirical, and practical frameworks that facilitate client growth and development, introspective awareness, and well-being in a global society. And if I can talk just really quick about this idea of social justice, anti-racism, these are words, that of course are gaining a lot of attention these days. And, they need to have depth and meaning. And I think our program is very much in tune with the idea of serving diverse clients in a socially just society, looking at ways that counselors can remove barriers for clients and students. So our program has two concentrations. There is the Master of Science in Counseling and School Counseling, and the Master of Science in Clinical Mental Health Counseling. And these are different academic course sequences. And a question I get all the time, oops, sorry, well, you can leave that screen on there, that's fine. But a question I get all the time is, can I do both? And because of certification and licensure issues, there is a way to, with clinical mental health counseling and school counseling and the way certification and licensure issue goes, there are school counseling students that have all the courses needed in order to gain licensure. But if you're thinking about, having all the classes that you need for school counseling and clinical mental health licensure, then our suggestion is that you go the school counseling route. But at the beginning, the good part is that, our courses, the foundational courses, which you can switch to the next slide. If you look at our foundational courses, you'll note that school counseling and clinical mental health counseling students take pretty much the same courses at the beginning. So you don't necessarily need to make that decision very early on. And of course, working with your advisor on what concentration might be the one for you based on your career interests. It's certainly conversations that we have all the time with our counseling students. So what you're seeing on your screen is the coursework needed for what we consider the full-time clinical mental health and school counseling track. These are both 60 credit track programs. What you see is that it takes about 3 years to complete. We have fall and spring semester courses. And what you see here on your screen is a full-time load, both for clinical mental health and school counseling tracks. So you'll see about 4 classes each semester. And then when you get to field experience, practicum or internship, which Dr. Newhart and I will talk about in just a little bit, you'll see that there's less courses per semester because those are, of course, more involved because you're in the field practicing those counseling skills. So as you look at these courses, you'll notice, as I said earlier, that at the beginning, the courses are similar. So human development theories, techniques, these are courses that our students take together. And then there's the specialty courses like Foundations of School Counseling, if you're on the school counseling track, or Introduction to Clinical Mental Health on the clinical mental health track. Courses like Diversity and Social Justice, Diagnosis, Career and Life Planning, and other courses like Group Counseling, Cognitive Behavioral Therapy, Ethics, Couples and Families. So you start seeing that there's a lot of similarity in courses, but then there's speciality courses, whether you're on the school counseling and clinical mental health track. The course sequence is important. Their courses are prerequisites that build on the next. Obviously, in order to get to your internship, you need to pass a sequence of courses. And before you get to those higher level or year 2 courses, you need to be successful in those year 1, semester 1 courses. So one of the things that you'll hear over and over as if you are to be accepted into the program, is to follow that course sequence. And of course, each student gets an academic advisor when they sign on to the program. It's one of our faculty members, and we walk our students through the process in terms of working with our students in terms of program plan. You can go to the next slide. And what you see here is the same exact course sequence, just built out a little bit more. Some of our students have other things going on. They might be working part-time. They might have other, personal issues going on. So they decide to take the course sequence at a little bit of a slower pace, which is just fine. I would say maybe it's about right now, Dr. Newhart, you can correct me if I'm wrong, or Kiana, please correct me on those stats. But I think right now, most of our students are like 50% full-time and maybe 50% part-time in the counseling program. And what you notice is, again, the same courses, but instead of completing in 3 years, it'll take an extra year, 4 years, to complete those courses in terms of not taking 4 classes a semester, but lessening that load down to 2 and 3 classes per semester. So that's the part-time, what we consider the part-time load. All right, so let me let Dr. Newhart come in here and talk a little bit about clinical experiences with Practicum. He'll talk about it from the clinical mental health side, and of course, I will fill in from the school counseling side. Dr. Newhart?
Thanks, Dr. Gonzalez. Welcome, everyone. We're really excited to have you join us today. So yeah, I'll be talking a little bit about the clinical experiences, particularly from the clinical mental health counseling side, which I've taught both Practicum, Internship 1 and Internship 2. So I sort of take students throughout their clinical experiences. So with the Practicum, this will really be your very first experience out in the field, engaging in clinical practice. So it's a 3-credit course in which you have to accrue at least 100 hours in a field experience setting. So with this 100 hours, you'll be working off-site at a clinical mental health agency or school. One of the big differences here between clinical mental health and the school tracks are that for clinical mental health, you'll actually be going out on your own and finding sites that kind of fit your clinical interests or fit, the sort of modalities that you are interested in working around or with. With that, we actually have a field experience coordinator, Ms. Conley, and our clinical director, Dr. Lauka, who do an amazing job of providing students with the infrastructure and the resources they need to seek out these experiences. So as I said, with the Practicum, this is your first clinical experience. So it's 40 direct hours of individual and group counseling. So that's pretty much any direct services you engage with in a counseling capacity with clients. And then you have to accrue 60 indirect hours, which is sort of all of the administrative, training, paperwork, those sorts of things that come along with being a counselor. So this shakes out to around at least 7 hours a week over the course of a 15-week semester. So typically, I will say that in Practicum, students can typically still maintain at least a part-time position if they'd like to. We also have students who are full-time and complete their Practicum. Sorry, they work full-time and complete their Practicum as well. And some of the things you'll be learning are integrating your theory and practice, conceptualizing, working with clients. Also, treatment planning. So, basically deciding how you're going to go about providing services to a client in a way that's evidence-based and effective. And then delivery of service. So I also wanted to mention that with this Practicum, there is the field experience component. So that's the, working off-site at least 7 hours a week. But there's also an actual course that you'll be taking that's guided by a university instructor. And during that course, you'll be receiving group supervision. So you'll have time to sort of process the Practicum experience, and you'll be applying a lot of the didactic and theoretical information that you've learned to the practice of being a mental health or school counselor. And this Practicum is also a prerequisite before internship, so you really have to complete this before you move on to internship. Dr. Gonzalez, did you want to highlight any differences between the clinical mental health and the school counseling Practicum?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Dr. Newhart. Yeah, so for schools, for those of you interested in the school counseling track, our field experience placement looks a little bit different. One question, we always get asked from students that are maybe teachers in a school or work in a school, can I do my Practicum or internship at the school I already work at? The answer is no, because there's dual relationship there in terms of, you know, whatever employment you have there and then being a practicum or internship student. So the answer to that is no, because of ethical reasons. Now, our field experience coordinator, Ms. Connolly, is amazing. We have locally, we have partnerships with, gosh, I don't even want to say how many numbers, but a number of school districts running all the way from Southern Pennsylvania to Northern Virginia in our area. And these are school districts where our students are placed at for both practicum and internship. So because we want students to have variety of experiences, K-12, our students will elect what level they want for practicum, whether it's elementary or secondary, and then for their internship, they must do the opposite to make sure that by the time they graduate, they have both experiences at the elementary and secondary level. Our students will pick their first, second, and third choice for school districts. And then Ms. Connolly, our field experience coordinator, sets that off to the school districts, and the school districts are the ones that place our students in schools. Now, of course, on that, now because of COVID and most of our school districts being online, most of our practicum students, actually all of my practicum students, I'm currently teaching 2 sections of practicum in school counseling. All of our students are online with their schools. However, once this all ends and we go back, can you unmute your microphone?
Everyone can have their mics on mute. That would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. So again, the districts are the ones that place our students. So again, you know, when our students apply for field experience, of course, they want to be mindful of where they live and how close they are to those districts and transportation to those districts. But if you're local to this area, you know, we have partnerships with Fairfax County, DC, Arlington, Alexandria schools, Prince George's County, Howard, Baltimore City, Baltimore County, Howard, I think I said Howard already, Anne Arundel. So as you can see, we have a number of partnerships with our school districts, and these are sites and districts that we have been working with for years. And they're such great places to learn for our students. So again, our students pick what district they want to be in and what level, and then the districts are the ones that place. You can advance to the next slide. Yeah. So while I'm on the subject as well, before Dr. Newhart gets on and talks about internship experiences in the clinical mental health space, let me talk about what internship looks like in school counseling. So your internship experience and practicum comes before internship. Your practicum is your introduction. You must successfully pass practicum, as Dr. Newhart said, to go into the internship experience. So the clinical experiences for school counseling is you will complete 600 hours as a school counseling intern practicing the role in a K-12 public setting. Students have the choice of completing that all in one semester for 6 credits, or breaking that up and splitting it up in 2 semesters and doing 300 hours per semester over 2 semesters. So students might do a fall, spring. So field experiences require participation during the school day in a school setting. So a lot of our students need to plan accordingly based on employment. You know, school is during the day. Most schools are during the day. So if you're going to do your internship in the full-time space, so like doing 600 hours in one semester, that means that you are doing 40 hours a week, like you would if you were to do full-time employment at a school. And if you do part-time, it's about 20 to 25 hours a week on site at a school. So we always ask our students to plan accordingly ahead of time, so that if you were to start in the program, you knew that in a year or 2, you would be in internship and what that means. So we have a lot of our students who are former teachers who went ahead and took a leave of absence or some sort of you know, leave in terms of being able to complete their internship experiences. Dr. Newhart, if you want to talk about the clinical intern.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Gonzalez. So very similar to the school counseling internship, the clinical mental health counseling internship is also 600-hour, 6-credit internship experience across 2 semesters in the fall and the spring. And this balances out to a minimum of 20 hours a week. So again, employment needs to be sort of considered in terms of how you're going to balance, being employed and completing your internship. Something that Dr. Gonzalez also highlighted that I didn't really hit on too much when I was speaking is that with our clinical experiences, we also offer a variety of experiences across a pretty large swath of areas, both geographically and focus wise. So I know that I've worked with plenty of students who work in DC, plenty of students who work in Baltimore, but also in the surrounding counties up towards Frederick. We've also had students who work in Pennsylvania as well. So you really have the option to go to really anywhere that you can imagine, as long as it fits the requirements of the internship. So we actually have sites sign an agreement with our clinical coordinators, and but yeah, that's really, I think that's all for the internship. And I see that there's some questions as well, and we can be sure to hit on those later. All right, so going into certification and licensure, so both school counselors and the clinical mental health counselors will be eligible to take the NCE to earn the National Counselor Certification credential. We actually offer the option for students to take the NCE while they're still in the program. So typically students will do this in their last semester. And what this does is that it provides you with the opportunity to pretty much already have this exam out of the way before you graduate. I know that in Maryland, the NCE, both graduating from a counseling program that has the required coursework and having successfully passed the NCE are requirements to become licensed. So for mental health counselors, being able to take the NCE before you graduate, you can kind of hit the ground running after graduation in terms of getting licensed and then getting employed after that. There are other specialty certifications available. So the NCSC is for school counselors, and the clinical mental health counselor is for, certified clinical mental health counselor is for the clinical mental health side of things. And these are really just specialty examinations and certifications that you can choose to earn. I know that for me, I came from a program, my master's program was in South Carolina, and I was able to get, based on the tests that I had to take, I was able to get the CCMHC credential. And then upon moving to Maryland, I actually earned the, I had to take the NCE. So I have both the NCC and the CCMHC, a lot of acronyms. And Dr. Gonzalez, did you want to talk any more just about the school counseling certification?
Yes, absolutely. So
Great.
thank you. To practice as a school counselor, it looks a little different. It's called certification, not licensure. Unless you're in the state of Virginia, they do call it licensure, but it looks the same as certification in all states. So those of you that come from an educational background and are maybe teachers, you know that in order to practice in a school system, you need a certification. I was a former teacher and a former school counselor. So in order to do that in Florida, which is where I practice, I needed that certification. So our degree gives you reciprocity. That means that the master's degree in school counseling is a master's degree no matter where you go in the United States. And so each state has their own requirements, much like you may need your own requirements for teaching. Each state has its own requirements in terms of certification for being a school counselor. Some states require a praxis exam. Some states may require an online child abuse course. Each state has its own certification procedures. So my suggestion to anyone in the room that is interested in coming to our program and earning their degree to become a school counselor, that you visit schoolcounselor.org. Schoolcounselor.org is the American School Counseling Association, our umbrella professional organization. On that site, there is a tab that says, what do I need to do to be a school counselor? And it goes state by state, including Washington, D.C. and U.S. territories and Puerto Rico, in terms of what additionally you need beyond the degree. But the degree will serve anywhere. We've had our graduates go all over the United States, and the degree is the degree no matter where you go. But you may need to do some additional things. Like when I graduated, I got my master's degree at the University of Florida. And when I graduated with my master's degree, in order to be certified in the state of Florida, I had to take an exam, a praxis exam. So that's the additional thing that I needed to do to apply for certification. So it looks a little different.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Gonzalez. That reminds me too, similarly to what Dr. Gonzalez was talking about, there are differing requirements for licensure as a counselor across states. So I would also recommend that if you're looking to be licensed in a certain state, that you go to the licensure board of counselors for that state and look up the requirements for licensure. From my understanding and having been licensed in Virginia and then moving to Maryland, our program addresses most of the core components, but there are some of state licensure requirements. But I will say that some states are very specific about what they require. I know that Florida requires a human sexuality course that needs to be taken, a graduate course. And there are other states who require very specific either course components or trainings for you to be licensed. So, this, our program will 100% prepare you to be licensed in Maryland. But if you're looking to be licensed elsewhere, just make sure that what we require aligns with the licensure requirements for that state. All right. And then we also offer 2 other programs. One of them is the Certificate of Advanced Graduate Study, and this is a 30-credit program. And it's really for individuals who are interested in counseling, but who work in different disciplines and who thinks kind of counseling can sort of benefit their career. And so we offer this mostly to people who who don't necessarily want to become fully licensed, but they think that adding this, into their educational repertoire would be helpful. And then we also have a postmaster's certificate in clinical mental health counseling. And this is really for students who may have either gone to who are coming from a school counseling program, or in which there was a 45-credit program, or students who maybe had gone to a non-CACREP accredited program, or a program that didn't have the required classes for licensure. So really, this is sort of just an add-on to that, to sort of having that counseling educational experience, but wanting to go for full licensure if you don't already have the coursework to do so. Dr. Gonzalez, did I miss anything with either of those programs?
No, not at all. I think, when the postmaster certificate used to exist or it still does exist, but you're absolutely right. It was mainly in existence for school counseling programs. So school counseling programs used to be 48 credits. Now CACREP has required that school counseling students take 60 credits of courses, just like clinical mental health. So that started last year. So we have some students that are still coming back and want those extra 15 credits. So that's why those programs exist.
Awesome, thank you. All right, and then just to sort of round us out for the clinical mental health counseling side of things, our graduates really get employed everywhere, whether that be private practice. We have a lot of students who are currently working with my interns who actually work in the hospital settings. Many of our students also work in outpatient clinics, so clinical mental health agencies. There's actually been a really big push within, I'd say, the last maybe 5 to 10 years of putting mental health counselors in schools as well. So almost contracting them to work for the schools to provide mental health counseling services for students. So we have a lot of students doing that as well. and then also governmental and other community agencies. Dr. Gonzalez, did you have anything you wanted to add about
Yes.
where? Okay, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't unmute my microphone for whatever
That's fine.
reason. So our school counseling students, obviously, you know, elementary, middle, and high schools, and also private and charter schools is where our school counseling students, the majority of our students end up, but they also end up in college career centers, on college campuses, in private organizations connected to school districts. These are school, you know, private organizations like College Bound, or Gear Up programs, non-for-profit organizations, community organizations, and I would even add to this, as we, you know, because of the area that we exist in with Washington, D.C., a lot of our students have also ended up working on the policy side of education as well. So I think that the area that we are in really lends itself to that public service setting as well. You know, I see some questions already about PhD programs, and so I guess this is a good time as ever to add it to this. We are seeing, of course, an increasing number in our graduates going into PhD programs. And you know, we'll talk about that. I think it's a slide coming up in terms of research opportunities and opportunities to present with faculty, which of course they exist as well. But this isn't on here, but I wanted to clarify as well that, you know, of course, our students go on to PhD programs as well.
Yeah, and Dr. Gonzalez was alluding to this, but we do offer different research opportunities for students. So just to clarify, we don't necessarily have required research experiences for students. You will have to take a research and evaluation course, but if you would like to pursue research above and beyond that required course, then typically the onus is on the students. But there are a variety of opportunities based on us being, you know, at Johns Hopkins. I know that several of the students I was working with last year pursued research opportunities in the different labs that were connected, you know, to Johns Hopkins. And there are also, you know, many faculty who are engaging in research that will invite students onto their research projects. I know Dr. Gonzalez and I were working with a student last semester on presenting at a conference that ended up being canceled in October, which is unfortunate. But that, you know, there are students who are working with faculty members on research opportunities. And then, you know, in terms of doctoral study, there is a doctoral program housed within the School of Education. It is not specifically related to counselor education, but I will say, as Dr. Gonzalez referenced, that we've had many students apply to and you know, be accepted to doctoral studies in counselor education and also in counseling and clinical psychology. I've only been here for 2 years, or sorry, actually it's only been a year. Feels like it's been 2 years. But you know, Dr. Gonzalez may have some more to add to that.
Yeah, sure. And as I look at the slide, I'm looking at that student in that picture who is one of my former students who actually is in a PhD program as we speak. So it's interesting that I look at her face and I'm like, oh yeah, you're in a doctoral program. Speaking of, so yeah, you know, we have so many students that are interested in all types of PhD programs. And again, you know, we'll say this over and over again, but, you know, your relationship with your academic advisor and faculty are the most important relationships that you're going to have as part of the program. So if you know ahead of time, you know, that you are thinking about going the PhD route, because so many of us have gone through that process as well, thinking about what can we do to better prepare you and make you a more viable candidate for that PhD process. Whether that means, you know, as Dr. Newhart said, presenting, you know, with faculty in conferences, which again, Dr. Newhart and I have a proposal in to another conference as well with a student, and opportunities for, you know, guest lecturing in classes or opportunities for presentations, whether it's local, national or international presentations, being part of research teams. And again, that's the beauty of, you know, the beauty of academia is that, we're housed within a school of education that has a number of different programs. And of course, we're at a world-renowned institution. So those opportunities for partnerships with other faculty, whether it's within the School of Education, outside of the School of Education, for research purposes, they're there. Those opportunities are there. But of course, this goes via relationships and how you, build relationships and network with people within the School of Ed and without. And of course, as academic advisors, we are the conduit to that. We're your advocates in that process. I can talk about this slide as well, Dr. Newhart.
All right, great, thanks.
Chi Sigma Iota is our international counseling society. It is our student group. It is an invitation-only organization based on GPA and professional dispositions. Our Chi Sigma Iota Lambda chapter, which is the one at Johns Hopkins University, it is very, very, very involved with our students. They are the liaisons between students and faculty. They have a number of committees based on, speaking of doctoral work or research, International Student Committee, Social Justice Committee. So there's a number of committees that they have within that program that you can be a part of, whether you're in, Chi Sig or not, in terms of, student groups coming together to really focus on a cause of interest. They bring speakers, they have social gatherings with students. So, this is an organization that I was chapter faculty advisor for 7 years before. It is now flipped. I am now the backup chapter faculty advisor, and my colleague, Dr. Zhang, is the lead chapter faculty advisor, but I'm still involved. And, we all really love working with our students and looking at, how our students can be leaders within their program. So this is an opportunity for our students to really get involved in different processes of leadership. Let me just think of the latest project they did. So one of the latest projects they did is give a huge survey to all of our students in terms of what are their needs, what is the needs assessment. They presented that to the dean, the vice dean, they're presenting it to us as faculty. So again, this is giving our students the power in order to make changes in our program. And if you are a part of this organization, you can be a part of it.
Great. Moving on to our student speakers. Our first speaker is Leah Cherner.
Good afternoon. My name is Leah Cherner, and I'm currently in my second year of the Clinical Mental Health Counseling program. Going into the application process, I knew my future graduate program needed to meet specific criteria. Johns Hopkins School of Education exceeded all of these standards. It was important to me to know I would be receiving an unparalleled education and training where there would be a focus on enhancing my ethical responsibility, cultural responsiveness, competence, clinical skills, and ability to utilize evidence-based research in my clinical practice. After the interview, I felt inspired by the faculty and students. Since coming to Hopkins School of Education, I have continued to be motivated by those around me. I believe that motivating environment of faculty is one of the School of Education's biggest strengths. The faculty educate from a place of desire to serve the future of the counseling field. Their love for this profession is exuberant and contagious and demonstrates to me the selfless nature of counseling. One of the greatest features of the School of Education is being surrounded by driven and collaborative faculty and peers. I have been able to engage in discussions with faculty and students across multiple disciplines in the School of Education. One of the opportunities I was looking forward to in graduate school was research. Although research experience is not required, the abundance of research opportunities available to students is incredible. I have been able to join a research lab at the Mood Disorders Clinic in the School of Medicine. Students also have the ability to engage in independent research studies if they have a desire to construct their own research during the program. The School of Education and the Clinical Mental Health Counseling program both emphasize multiculturalism, diversity, and individual differences. This is without a doubt one of the most influential aspects of this program. The program believes that every interaction is a cross-cultural interaction, and they are. This philosophy propels the program to infuse multiculturalism into every course and encourages discussions of diversity at every opportunity in order for students to enhance our worldviews and perspectives. The emphasis on multiculturalism has improved my understanding of my clients, allowed me to have intimate conversations, and increased my therapeutic relationship with my clients. Something that I enjoy about the program is that I'm able to work closely with numerous professors. I have developed close relationships with all my faculty and professors, and throughout the program, I have been able to seek advice, guidance, and perspective from them. The supportive environment the faculty create has provided me with confidence to be authentic in my pursuits and has challenged me to continually grow in order to best serve myself and my clients. My professors have always encouraged my peers and myself to advocate for ourselves and for those around us. It is in part because of my professors that I ran for Johns Hopkins Chapter Board of CSI, which is the International Honor Society for Counseling. Through this experience, I have been able to be a liaison between faculty and students, work closely with the faculty to provide feedback, and create committees to enhance student involvement. I am the co-founder of the Research Committee, which we just started this fall. Other committees founded by my peers are the International Committee and the Field Experience Committee. The program provides us the freedom to create projects we are passionate about from the ground up. My lifelong experiences have impacted my biases, which shape my worldview. The program recognizes that we all have our own unique experiences that shape our worldviews, perspectives, and biases. The faculty foster a curriculum that challenges students to be introspective and reflective of our experiences and backgrounds to gain a deeper insight into who we are and how that impacts us as we enter the therapeutic environment. The program's curriculum and assignments continue to increase my self-awareness and have led to my enhanced counseling skills. My peers have significantly enriched my counseling experience. The diverse student population is one of the program's greatest assets. My overall development as a student and clinician has been shaped by intellectual conversations with my peers who hold unique worldviews, which have led to my development of necessary skills to be a holistic counselor who is sensitive to diverse clients. These discussions built the foundation for a strong community of driven and supportive colleagues, open to honest and intimate dialogues. My colleagues are more than just my colleagues. They are my friends, my confidants, and my support system. We watch each other grow, we cheer each other on, and we speak daily. The relationships I have developed with my peers withstand the impacts of social distance and COVID. Although building relationships during COVID may be difficult, my friendships have remained as fruitful as they would have been if we were still in person. The advice that I have for all of you is to ask your questions, reach out to the Office of Admissions and ask to be connected with current students, and to be on the lookout for faculty who are passionate about the material that they are teaching. That is something that you can't quantify, but is something that has made all of the difference in my education and experience here in the counseling program at Hopkins. Thank you for allowing me to share my experience as a student in the clinical mental health counseling program with you today.
Thank you, Leah. Our next student speaker is Dantavious Hicks.
Hey everyone, my name is Dantavious. First I want to say Dr. Gonzalez and Dr. Newhart, very comprehensive overview of the program. I am a former educator. I've taught middle school math. I've trained teachers through an anti-racist and culture-relevant pedagogy lens. I joined the school counseling program in spring of 2019. So this is my last semester. I graduated in December. I have a different journey here. I started in a different program, and I transitioned after my first semester there to this program. Very smooth transition, I'll say. But one of the things that really sticks out to me about this program, and I think it's kind of been highlighted in Leah and the previous content that was covered. The program in the School of Education's counseling program, you're learning from leaders in the profession. These are people who are very passionate about changing the profession, moving the profession forward, who have made impacts that are known throughout the nation and internationally. You're learning from experts, you really are. And I don't take that for granted. When you're in a classroom and you see the passion that your professor has about their work and their content area, their area of expertise, it really enhances the learning environment. For example, my first semester here, I took techniques, and I was very familiar with one of the the most known approaches to multicultural counseling is a technique called, or known as broaching, developed by Dr. Norma Devines. And I had her as a professor for techniques. Didn't know that she was the professor for the course. But she just started talking about her area of expertise. I had already written a proposal to do research on with the broaching technique, and shared it with her, and it's led to like being led to what has been the highlight of my experience here in Hopkins. I came into the field knowing that I wanted to expand the clientele, expand what it means, expand who has access, to quality counseling services, and knowing that there have been communities who have been neglected, who have not been considered in, I guess, the development to our approach, and just how counseling is just scoped it. So that was important to me, and to have that experience and be in the presence of someone who has developed a technique that has changed the profession was just one of many experiences that I recall being great for my first semester. I've talked about the broaching research. I just recently, I'm in the process of wrapping up, I should say, a national study that looks at school counselors broaching. And broaching is a technique that is essentially a counselor's ability to explore how race, ethnicity, and culture might be related to the presenting concern that they have, why they're coming to counseling. And we did a national study looking at school counselors in training, broaching behaviors, and their racial identity development. And I'm on a couple other research teams that are centered around broaching. What other highlights? I won the Student Excellence Award this past summer. But I think what's really important here, there's been talk about field experience and practicum and internship. For me, that has been like one of the most exciting things, like to be able to apply all that you've learned in a setting, in a field setting. And for me, that was at Henderson Hopkins School here in Baltimore City. It's a K-8 school. And I was kind of looking through some of the questions, and I know they're going to get addressed towards the end. But one of the things was how we ensuring that we're preparing, students are prepared to work with students from diverse backgrounds and from marginalized backgrounds, students of color who have, as we know, not always been at the center of the priorities, and the work hasn't always been, equity hasn't always been at the forefront of our work. I will say that your classwork and your coursework really holds you to accountability to ensure that your work is equitable. And you'll see that throughout the program, especially in field experience. My advice to you all and to anyone in the counseling field really is to continue to read counseling literature. As you read and you know what's current, it helps you not only hone in on what your area of expertise might be, but it pushes you to want to be a better counselor. And it also makes you aware of what's missing, what are the gaps, what needs to take place in our profession in a way that gives you foresight to be a better counselor. And I'll say, I'll wrap up by saying I'm also in the process of applying to graduate school, PhD program. So I want to say also, just when you enter and as you fill out applications, be honest. Show who you are, and just share why you come into the field, what your interests are, and just know that you're going to go. What drove you to be a counselor? Make sure that shines in your student journey and in your professional journey, even beyond the program. Good luck to you all, and I'm glad to be here. Hopefully to answer more questions at the end as well.
Thank you, Leah and Dantavious, for joining us today and sharing about your experience here at SOE. Now we're going to continue by going over the application requirements. Applicants must submit a completed application which can be found on our website. The application fee is $80. Next, we need all official transcripts, including institutions you may have taken courses but did not receive a degree. So again, this is from all post-secondary institutions that you have attended. Next, 500-word essay must be uploaded. Please visit our website on the admissions webpage to learn more about the essay portion of the application. You will need a current resume or CV, 2 letters of recommendations. If you're unable to have 1 academic letter of recommendation, we will accept 2 professional letters of recommendation. Please note that the GRE is not required for this program. And lastly, if selected, a group interview is also required. There are a few additional steps you need to take in order to complete the application process if you're an international student. You must submit a TOEFL or IELTS score. And if your degree was completed outside of the US, you will need to complete a course-by-course evaluation. Additional information can be found on our website. The tuition for the 2020-2021 academic school year is $882 per credit for online classes and $833 per credit for face-to-face classes. This excludes textbook, course materials, graduation fee, and registration fee. And please note, additional fees apply and are charged separately from tuition. We encourage you to view our tuition and fees page on our website for the most up-to-date information about tuitions and fees. And if you're interested in applying for financial aid, we strongly encourage you to apply for financial aid when you start your application. And we do offer a very limited number of partial need-based scholarship for fall and spring semesters. Please visit our website if you have any questions relating to financial aid. And if you have any questions relating to your application, please contact our admissions coordinator, Tyreen Maddox. And any program-related questions, please contact Kiana Napper, Academic Program Coordinator for the Counseling Program. Thank you for attending today's virtual webinar. At this time, we would like to open up the floor for questions. All right, so the very first question we have is from Renee. Does the school have an EMDR course? And does the school have an internship agreement with Walter Reed? And does the school need all undergraduate degree schools or just the school which you received your bachelor's?
I can respond to the first 2 questions.
Sure.
So I know that EMDR is a very specific approach in psychotherapy. So we do not offer a specific EMDR course. I know that typically with EMDR, you have to get certified post-graduation in that approach. So that would be something you would pursue once you've attained your provisional license and you've graduated from the program. Although EMDR is, potentially touched on, I know that I teach a advanced treatment approaches course, and there is a little bit about EMDR within that course. But also, there are potentials that there is a potential that we could offer something that includes more about EMDR in the future. I know that our elective offerings are, some of them are stable, but others are shifting. So I know last spring we offered, I believe, 2 or 3 new elective courses. So those usually shift depending on student need and kind of what we perceive the need to be. And in terms of an agreement with Walter Reed, that would be a good question for our clinical director. I wouldn't be surprised if we've had students work there in the past, but I can't say that I've worked with a student, an internship student who's been at Walter Reed.
And then the question regards to whether Does the school need all undergraduate degree schools or just a school in which you received your bachelor's? So we need official transcripts from all institutions. So even if you did not receive a degree, we definitely need official transcripts.
Okay, and the next question is from Thilani. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. The question is, counseling is often a cis white field. What work does this program do to make sure there is representation, and how do they approach creating safe spaces for people of color?
I'll take this one. What a fantastic question. Absolutely. Let me address the first part, which is representation. I will say this about so let me talk about faculty representation and let me talk about student representation. So faculty representation is something that whenever we do new hires, it is something that is at the forefront of our list in terms of representation of underrepresented folks in counseling. And you know, being cis and white, absolutely, and mostly female dominated field. So when we think about that in terms of underrepresentation in faculty, that is at the forefront. And if you look at our faculty, we are so blessed, and I am so blessed to be working with colleagues that, that have that representation. Of course, we don't have all aspects represented, but thinking about that from a perspective of who is in the room, who's making the decisions, and who is teaching the courses. The other aspect of this is representation in terms of students. Due to accreditation standards, that's something that we constantly have to be looking at in terms of what our student body looks like, and what does the retainment look like, what does the recruitment look like in terms of representation in our student body. Now, the safe spaces question is fantastic in terms of looking at safe spaces. Of course, you know, it's subjective based on the, you know, the person experiencing it. I will say that multiculturalism and diversity is not lip service. It is not something that, you know, we put up in our mission statement just for fun. It is what embodies our program in terms of every single aspect of our program, whether it be what's happening in coursework, what's happening in field experience, what's happening in supervision, what's happening when you sit with your advisor. Are we there yet? Absolutely not. There is no arrived. We are not there yet, but we are creating the spaces, and we want to continue to create the spaces where our students are advocating for themselves, the profession, and communicating to faculty in terms of their need for that safety. As a person of color, I can totally understand the feelings of not feeling safe. So being able to have those conversations and build the relationships to have those conversations is something that we believe is so important, and creating the opportunities to give the space, right, for students to talk about that. Again, because we are in a counseling field, it is the experiential portion of our courses really allow for those kinds of conversation. Of course, that is from one perspective. I'm going to ask Leah and Dantavious to answer that question as well in terms of your experiences in the program and your experiences in feeling and having those safe spaces. So I defer to you both in terms of answering that question.
I'll come off. As I shared, in full transparency, I started off at an HBCU because I, in undergrad, went to a PWI, and I wanted an experience where I didn't have to have what I would categorize as cognitive dissonance, and always having to think about, as a person of color, whether your perspective is going to be accepted as a perspective for your entire racial or ethnic community. So I was at HBCU and transferred here, and I was very afraid, is the best way to put it, that I would have the similar experience that I did to undergrad. I will say here, there are conversations about diversity and inclusion in every single class. There are opportunities for you as students, to create those safe spaces with, friend groups and with other people of color, to still talk about your experience, right? Because that's important. And I will say there's plenty of opportunity to do that. I've actually created spaces where that's taking place, especially in light of the police brutality recently, killing and murder of George Floyd. I created a group for Black students of color in the program, and Black students and other students of color in the program to process. It wasn't a support group or a counseling group. It wasn't a counseling group, I should say, for ethical reasons, but it was a support group. And I will say that faculty is committed to growing. I was in a call, and I'll say this ironic, I was in a call the other day about anti-racist pedagogy, and I looked up and Dr. Gonzalez was in the call. So professors are always continuing to learn as well, and you'll see that, and that's important. They're always in spaces to think about how they are, their work is, their work in the spaces and the classes that we're in are responsive to the needs of all students. I pretty much, I hope that answers the question, but that's my experience, from my experience.
Yeah, Dantavious, absolutely. And again, I think, as faculty, we have to model the expectations that we have of our students in terms of how they're going to treat clients and how they're going to treat students in terms of making the safe spaces there. So we have to model that. And like I said earlier, there is no arrived, but we constantly have to be evaluating and assessing where and how we are creating those safe spaces and build the relationships with our students, so that there is those opportunities, right, to talk about when students don't feel safe, what is happening in the room. I think all of that is really, really important. Before we keep going, I just want to, Dr. Newhart had to step off because he was meeting with a client at 4. I'm going to stay in the room to answer any and all questions that I can, so we can keep going with more questions.
Oh, great. That was my next question for you, Dr. Gonzalez. If you could stay maybe.
Absolutely. Yeah, he had a client,
Wonderful.
but I'm in it for the long haul. I will stay as long as you all want me to.
Okay, wonderful. The next question we have from Antonio, and Dr. Gonzalez, you did touch upon this, but again, any additional comments? But how does the program, I had a similar question, but in regards to school counseling, how does the program ensure that counselors are supportive of students of color and those from marginalized communities?
Antonio is speaking my language. Absolutely. That is my life's work, is really understanding how counselors are supportive of students of color in schools. I will say again, our field experiences, because of the nature of the placements that we have, these are opportunities in schools that have site supervisors that were our former students or were part of some professional development with us that are doing the work and are modeling this kind of work with marginalized communities, students of color, low income areas, suburban areas, because marginalized students exist in every form, in every space. And so thinking about using data to find those students, figuring out what interventions are supportive for those students, I think that this is the space. The other thing is an internship. Dantavious can talk about this if we have the time. Is you do an equity project, right? And the idea is that you focus on a specific goal and you create interventions and use data to measure the impact of those interventions on whatever goal you have in the vein of equity, right? In the, historically it's been known as, the academic achievement gap or the attainment gap. The onus there is very much on the students. Really what we're looking at is, from a systems perspective, what are the opportunity gaps, right? What are the access gaps that schools have, and what can school counselors do to remedy those gaps for students, particularly vulnerable populations, those that may not have the voice to speak out against these injustices in schools. So Antonio, we can of course talk offline more and more about that. Obviously you can hear my voice as I talk quicker about it. This is my passion and this is my life's work. So I'd be happy to talk to you more and more about that.
Thank you. And so the next question is from Michael. It's a 3-part question. The first question is, why has the school lost its K-CREP accreditation? And how does this affect the process we have to go through to get the license? What if I want to practice in another state? And are there any faculty members working on psychedelic therapy, and can a graduate work with the Johns Hopkins Psychedelic Research Unit?
Yeah, great questions. Let me address the first one, which is KCREP accreditation. And of course, that is a big question that we get asked a lot, and where we are in the process, which I think is one of the questions further down. Or actually, the next question from Renee is, where is the department in KCREP recertification? So I can say that we have resubmitted our self-study. Originally, our KCREP accreditation was removed because of what's called FTE, faculty to student ratios. To remedy that, we have hired more faculty because our program is very large. We've gone ahead, or the dean has made decisions to hire more faculty, which is great. And so that has, by the very nature of mathematics, reduced our faculty to student ratio, which was the only reason why we lost that accreditation. Our syllabi, our assessments, our assessment plan was all in line. So we have resubmitted that with our new FTE numbers. We are scheduling our site visit now. Of course, it will happen virtually because of COVID, but the KCREP committee, we've got, I think, 2 potential dates on the book this fall that the KCREP committee is gonna do a virtual site visit, which is where they, unpack all of our self-study materials. And then I believe they meet in the spring semester, so we should know by the end of the spring semester whether or not we are reaccredited, which we are looking very good towards. As well, if you have more specific KCREP accreditation questions, you can always reach out as well to my colleague, Dr. Justin Lauka. One of the things that happened as well is that he is now the lead in terms of KCREP recertification. So this is his role in our program. And so he is relentless in terms of the paperwork and the data that we need to collect for that reaccreditation process. So that's the process that we are in now. What if I want to practice in another state? I think Dr. Newhart and I alluded to this earlier in terms of you will have to look at, what are the requirements for clinical licensure if you want to go for the clinical mental health side. Now for school certification, again, visit schoolcounselor.org, the American School Counseling Association will tell you what is required in other states. But of course, like as I said earlier, the master's degree has reciprocity in every state. So that will be the same no matter what state you go to. These are great questions. Are there any faculty members working on psychedelic therapy? To my knowledge, within the counseling program, we do not. However, I do know that there is, yes, a psychedelic research unit. And I know this because one of my students that just graduated this summer, one of my former students, he is very interested in psychedelics and counseling. And I know that he was working, he was volunteering over at that psychedelic research unit. And this was a research class that I taught this summer. His entire research proposal was about psychedelics. So are there any faculty members working on psychedelic therapy? Within our counseling program, no. But that doesn't mean that the opportunities, as I said earlier, the opportunities to work in other departments or to volunteer, do research in other departments, those, of course, those opportunities are there.
Also, excuse me, this is Ms. Napper, the coordinator. To go back to the first part of the question, asking if the KCREP accreditation affects the process for licensure, it does not. You're still graduating from a middle states accredited program, and you will have all the coursework that you need to sit for licensure. The only reason that KCREP will have any weight on that is for certain jobs, like with the federal government, they require that you graduate from a KCREP accredited program. But other than that, nothing changes with the way you go about getting your license.
Thank you, Ms. Napper. And Dr. Gonzalez, we have approximately about maybe like 5 more minutes for question.
Sure.
The next one we have is, how will the practicum experience change, if at all, due to COVID-19? Or how is JHU transitioning to accommodate the practicum requirements for students during this time?
Ooh, we're living it, right? Dantavious is living it, Leah's living it, we're living it as we speak. We are online. I mean, as different telehealth is happening. And so all of our students, or the majority of our students, I should say, are doing their practicum and internships online as we speak. Obviously, you know, that changes some things in terms of recordings for case presentations, depending on the policy in school districts or in clinical sites. But I think, you know, again, we have transitioned, you know, this is our third semester, right? So it happened, you know, we all went under, or I should say went in March was, you know, the big change. And so this is our third semester in terms of providing these field experiences, and it's getting better in terms of how we do it. And of course, thinking about the ethical implications of doing telehealth or teletherapy, whether you're school counseling or clinical mental health. And thankfully, we have a lot of guidance from school districts, site supervisors, clinicians, and our professional organizations. So it does change, obviously, aspects of it change. It is not exactly the same experience, but one of the skill sets that a counselor is going to need is flexibility. And certainly our students, I would say so far, are doing incredible in terms of flexibility in their experiences in transitioning to online. One question as well that we missed is right above it in terms of PhDs in neuropsychology. I didn't want to ignore that question. Does the program equip students to go into PhD programs? The answer is yes, depending on the program, right? So my suggestion to Thelini, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, I apologize if not, as someone who has a name that is hard to pronounce as well, I understand. So thinking about it in terms of what are the requirements for a neuropsychology program, any student that comes to me and says, I'm interested in a PhD in blank, I always say, find an institution, talk to their, you know, the same thing that you're doing now with us, do that with them. And you might want to talk to students that are in that program as well, PhD students that are in that program, and say, what's your background? What did you need to do to get there? So neuropsychology is obviously a very specific field. So you might want to investigate that as well.
All right, the next question is from Irene. I live in Northern Virginia and would like to practice here instead. Any restrictions to my joining the program?
Not at all, Irene. I live in Northern Virginia as well. So I travel to Baltimore for work when we're not in COVID times. And, you know, as long as you're able to, you know, when we are meeting face-to-face, our classes are, when we're not in COVID times, the majority of our classes are face-to-face. We have, I think, 4 online classes. The rest are face-to-face. And the expectation when we're not in quarantine is that our students will show up and be there in person. Same thing with field experiences and supervision. So, you know, if you can make the drive or the train ride up there as I do, then you should be okay.
The next question is, are internships paid? If yes, how much?
Internships are not paid due to conflict of interest. Internships and practicum field experiences are for your training, therefore they are not paid.
The next question is from Andrew. How does one with a full-time job fulfill the 300-hour practicum requirement? I'm on active duty in the military. Have any active duty service members been able to complete this program?
Great question, Andrew. First and foremost, thank you so much for your service. Yes, students that have been in full-time jobs have been able to complete the 300-hour practicum. It all depends on if you want to go in the school counseling or the clinical mental health counseling track. The reason I say that is because of clinical placements. There are clinical placements that occur during non-traditional work hours. Of course, I don't know what your work schedule is, but we have clinical placements that happen on weekends or in evenings. Now, school placements typically, of course, take place during the school day. So students may have to free up that time. So working full time and doing, you know, a during the day type internship might be difficult. So in the past, again, some students have either taken a leave of absence or sort of scheduled around when it is that they need to work. If you've got further questions on that, we can certainly, you know, you can email me and we can talk offline about that, about what your specific situation is.
Next question, can I do my clinical experience in California? Do you have any connections there?
So the challenge with doing clinical experiences is when we go back to face-to-face, there's ethical issues and ethical implications to being close to sites. So we require our students at this point to do face-to-face, in-person and local internship placements. That may change, and certainly, you know, I would probably refer that question to Dr. Lauka, our clinical experiences coordinator. But the majority of our students complete them locally because of the supervision course, the internship and practicum course our students need to be there face-to-face.
The next question is from Jonathan. For clinical mental health, can you briefly discuss private practice internship opportunities? Additionally, is there a path to support for those who pursue a doctorate sometime after obtaining a master's?
Second question, absolutely, there is a path. And can I briefly discuss private practice internship? We have them. We absolutely have private. As a matter of fact, some of our adjunct faculty have private practices and take on our internship students in clinical spaces. Again, our fearless coordinator, Darlene Connolly, has a massive database of all the clinical sites that we have. Additionally, if our students, decide on a placement or find a placement that isn't on that list, obviously there's a pre-approval process that our students can go through, but our students can find their own site, and it can be in a private practice, and they have in the past. And I think I've already answered the doctoral question, so we can keep going.
The next question from Maria, does your clinical mental health program support the licensing requirements for child life specialist?
I'm gonna say I don't know on that one. Child life specialist is a license that I'm not very familiar with. I don't know how much overlap there is. I assume it is a different type of licensure, but I am not 100% on that, Maria. If you want to email me after this, I can certainly point you in the right direction to ask and connect with someone that might be able to answer that question.
Next question is from Megan. Could you talk a bit about how the clinical mental health concentration might prepare someone who is interested in focusing on trauma in global populations? Would this come down to site placement / supervision selection?
Trauma in global populations is something that I've had students in the past that have worked with refugee populations. I'm thinking of a couple of students in particular in my diversity and social justice class. That's their background, and a lot of their work was focusing on that. It may come down to site placement and supervision. Again, I think by the very nature of geography and where we are, there's lots of organizations that serve in terms of trauma, particularly for refugee and newcomers in terms of those populations. And in terms of focusing, the beauty of our program is, there is always conversation around assignments and what interest our students have. And if that is a focus of interest of yours, we can certainly, we talk to our students in terms of, where they want to be and how the coursework and assignments prepare them for that. So again, that is relationships with faculty and relationships with your advisor in terms of if this is where your goals are. How do we specifically, bearing all the way down to like assignments in class or field experiences, what is going to best prepare you for that, which it's been done in the past, and we can certainly work with you on that.
The next question from Maria, if a student goes the clinical mental health route and then decides they want to work in a school setting, are there additional courses that need to be taken, or will that student have to have the certificates and licensing they need to work in a school setting?
Yes, great question. Because of certification and licensure in schools, you can't do it the other way. So what by that I mean is that if you're interested in obtaining your licensure and also having your school counselor certification, then my suggestion is you do the school counseling track. And you will have the courses that you need to go through the licensure process to also get the clinical. Now, if you go through the clinical track and then decide that you want to be a school counselor, it doesn't work backwards. So in other words, you would have to start the program all over again. So the only way it works in terms of going the clinical, having the clinical mental health licensure and the school counseling certification is to go through the school counseling track that will give you all the courses that you need for clinical mental health licensure.
All right, the next question is from Renee. If a student has several other certificates in counseling programs, will they be accepted for the program?
Acceptance to our program is not built on other certificates. Acceptance in our program is based on, personal essay or admission interview, all those kinds of things. Maybe the way that they meant to ask the question was, transfer credit. Maybe that might be the way that the question is phrased. If I'm getting it wrong, Renee, I apologize. But one of the questions as well is, we have students that start in other counseling programs and then come to us. And if that is the case, and if that's what the question means, Certainly, we do accept a max of 6 credits from another K-CREP accredited program. That is not guaranteed. Your advisor would have to look at the syllabus and would have to look at the course number to verify that it is equivalent to our course. And the maximum that you can transfer in is 6 credits.
And those classes also have to be taken within the last 5 years.
Thank you, Kiana. Yes, yes.
You're welcome.
The next question we have is from Emma. Is it possible to engage in research in topics such as systems of racial and social oppression in departments that may be housed outside of the School of Education? Can you ultimately be a marriage and family therapist upon completion of the clinical mental health program, or does that work require different training? And lastly, what are medium GRE scores? And I will answer the questions about the GRE. The GRE is not a requirement for the counseling program. Therefore, we do not have median GRE scores.
All right. So is it possible to engage in research topics as systems of racial and social oppression? Absolutely. Sign me up.
Please do it. Please. I'm off mute. I had to come off mute for that one, Dr. Gonzalez.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Dantavious and I are sitting here like, yes, please.
Yeah, you can also, I want to say this too, like research opportunities, you're not limited to what's just at your university. Like you can reach out to other people who are doing research, and you'll be surprised. I'm doing work with another university that that's not even associated with Hopkins in any way. Reach out to people in the field, in an area of expertise that you want to do research in.
Let me see, what was the next question? I lost the next.
Can you ultimately be a marriage and family therapist?
So marriage and family therapist, I believe the licensure requirements are different. Again, I would suggest you look at the state that you want to practice in and look up what MFT licensure is and see what overlap there is in terms of clinical mental health. But my understanding is that it is a different type of licensure. I know in Maryland, it is a separate types of licensure. And we do not have a specific marriage and family therapy concentration. We have a clinical mental health counseling program.
Question from Lauren. Is there a difference between an MS in counseling psychology and an MS of clinical mental health counseling?
Absolutely. There are huge differences between counseling psychology and clinical mental health counseling. Clinical mental health counseling is about wellness, whole wellness, in terms of I mean, I'm just trying to like put this into words as quickly as possible because I know we have 17 more questions. But yes, there are massive differences between counseling psychology and clinical mental health in terms of therapy practices, in terms of philosophy. So yes, I highly encourage you to explore those because there is a huge difference.
All right, so thank you for joining us today. Unfortunately, we are out of time. It is 4:23. If your question was not answered, please email admissions and also the counseling department, and we're more than happy to answer questions. We look forward to hearing from you. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.